Anyway, if you were listening to the radio broadcast, raise your hand. Just push star 2 on your phone. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. So anyway, that was a pretty interesting program. It seems to get a little intense at the end, although there's LB's got a lot on his plate. He's had to deal with a lot of stuff over the last 20 something years. And then there's the Facebook thing. That's also another hurdle to jump, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just more of a maze to get through. It seems like people more interested in their self than trying to affect change or do the right thing. Got some stuff here to read, if I can find it. This is something, actually, I can read this here. It's on July 27th, 1868, one day before the 14th Amendment took effect, an act of Congress was passed. This act was 15 United States Statute at Large 55, known as the Expatriation Statute. Though this statute is no longer included in the United States Code, it has not been repealed and is still in effect. This statute is extremely important because it is the public municipal law and the individual can use for private purposes to remove him or herself from the private trust law operating in the public sector. That is, a private individual who has found himself or herself bound by private law that is being used in the public sector to promote public policy of compelled performance, which he did not have a choice in, can access the positive public statute law to move back under the liberty and protection of the Republic and its separation of powers. The preamble of the 15 United States Statute at Large is unique in that Congress laid the legal discussions to rest before the statute took effect to assure it would not be tampered with legally in any way. It stands as written and is there for the citizens to use as public law for the private purposes of moving themselves from one political or territorial jurisdiction to another. This means there is a way out at any time of any United States government policy or law, including those of its political subdivisions, that is based on private law. Whenever you found yourself bound by any compelled performance that you had no choice in, you are operating in the jurisdiction of the United States government and its political subdivisions, where there is no Republican form of government, and its separation of powers. By applying public laws for your private benefit, you can break that dictatorial jurisdiction at any time you choose. So basically, they had to give you a way out prior to implementing the 14th Amendment unlawfully, ratifying the 14th Amendment, and they had to make it where nobody could mess with it. The problem is that not very many people know about this, nor, if they do know about it, know what it takes to get out of it. Tonight, our presenter, Levi Fishbone Charlton, has gone through the process. He is a Virginia State national and has been for quite some time. Right now, he's taking care of some personal matters with his family, taking care of his kids.
I'm actually back right now.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
I was just listening. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, that's fine. I was just trying to fill some space here. This was a passage that I got from, I think it's, I didn't put the source of it. I want to say Larry Beecraft.
I did hear a bit of what you were saying there, but I kind of caught just maybe the last minute or so.
It was a it was about the Expatriation Act and about how it's a statute and how it was uh, implemented. It was ratified before the one day before July 27th, 1868, one day before the 14th Amendment took effect. My understanding is the 14th Amendment was actually forcefully, unlawfully ratified, but they couldn't implement it. So the day before it was implemented, they made sure that this way out was given, because being according to international law, to have a de facto system, there has to be a de jure system in place.
Yeah, I have always kind of understood it. I mean, I don't know the particulars and exactly the rules and everything with regard to the law and international law and everything, but I was kind of I was understand things better with analogies. And the way that I look at it is kind of like when you look at the myth of vampires, you actually have to invite the vampire into your house, and then they are able to come in, you know, over and over again. And so there's like this metaphysical barrier there. Unless you invite the vampire in, then you're safe. So with when I think about this topic, and how it relates to that as an analogy, it's like they have to sort of they have to supply a way out, even if it's hidden under, a metaphorical 50-ton boulder. It's still there. You have to find it. You have to do the work to get to it. They put it there. They can hide it if they want, but it's got to be there. You know what I mean?
Right. It has to. And like I was saying on the show, that it's sort of maybe it's their form of honor, that they've got to show you what they're doing, in advance. It may be obscure, it may be in a movie, it may be, like you said,
that's how lesser magic and the occult, like, sort of rituals and stuff that they'll do in music videos or whatever they'll show. They'll put symbolism, they'll put different things like that in there, and people call it predictive programming. And also, it is their way of, they have to tell you what they are going to do to you, and then you have to go along with it in order for it to have, I guess, the best return for their, their power leeching or whatever it is that they're after. For it to have the best effect, you have to sort of, go along with it voluntarily, even if you've been tricked into it. So they have to tell you. They can't just come out and outright lie. It's some sort of weird rule that they have, like you said.
Yeah, it gets pretty spiritual at that point, where you've got this this evil power that is being accepted, voluntarily by the masses. So that's the thing here, the privileges and immunities, the treats that they put out there, the money, the fame, the fortune. You'll find that many of these entertainers have literally sold their soul. And when you say they sold their soul, you think, well, they sold their soul to the devil. Well, no, they sold their soul to the system. They sold their soul for money. A perfect example, there's a video on YouTube. I don't particularly watch a lot of them that are entertainment based, but this particular one was with Dave Chappelle, and how he figured it out. He's living on a farm in Ohio now. He's not in the entertainment industry anymore, because he realized what it was about. He figured it out.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff on YouTube that, they didn't even beat around the bush. They said almost quite literally, you sell your soul to the devil, like signed in blood and everything. And you don't get to the upper echelons unless you've actually participated in some sort of compromising ritual, or some sort of blackmail that they'll have on you then. So you're then controlled forever, because they have, pictures or video or whatever of you doing whatever. And that's in essence how you sell your soul. You compromise yourself,
right,
by doing something, unconscionable, and, in the company of other people that, then are witness to it and have evidence of it and everything. And then you're given all these, all these goodies and all these little prizes and stuff. But from then on, you don't make your own decisions. You don't think for yourself. You don't act for yourself.
Right. And how this relates to U.S. citizenship is they've basically forced you to be a U.S. citizen at birth, but they had to do that by deception. They had to use some sort of deceptive, but in order for them to get away with that, there had to be a way out. And so what they do is they shower you with privileges and immunities in disguise, rights that you think they're rights, but they're not. They're not.
Yeah, it's
rights.
Conveniences.
There you go.
I was writing a paper before I got introduced to PAC, and it was basically the whole premise of the paper was about voting with your dollar and about how convenience is your enemy most of the time. Because you go to the convenience store, what's in the convenience store? All the trashiest food, and it's all the most expensive as well. And the most convenient, thing to do as a citizen is to sort of, just do what everybody else is doing and go along with, go get a mundane job that you don't really like and use the social security number, just pay all the different fees and, things that they take out. You don't even really know why. You don't really know where it's going. It's convenient. You don't take the time to learn about it. You don't take the time to think about these type of things because it's the easier thing to do. It's the more convenient thing.
Right. When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
That's where that kind of comes from. And then there's that other Roman saying, there's nothing new under the sun. So with that, we've got our callers. It's about 7:13.
Yeah.
Do you have the PowerPoint handy?
I have it up.
Okay.
Do you want me to put it in the chat box or?
Well, you can. We've got a couple, 1, 2, 3, 4 that can see it. And
okay, we just
that would be fine. It's sort of interactive. There we go.
Yeah, it's processing right now, and once it's done, then we can actually put it up as the backdrop of the chat here. And we did have another person just now pop in. We've been filling some time for a little while, kind of waiting for other people to come in, and I had to finish, brushing my kids' teeth and stuff. So, a little bit behind the scenes action going on. We were sort of getting into a little discussion about some philosophy stuff there, but we're going to start the presentation, I guess, now. I will pop it right up there. And it says, greetings from PAC. PAC stands for People's Awareness Coalition. PAC was founded in 1998 by L.B. Bork, who then released the book The Red Amendment in the year 2000. The Red Amendment's the tagline, the book that will change America, and I believe that to be true if only we could get it into more people's hands and get more people reading it. That's what we're all here for, is to help spread the message. So People's Awareness Coalition, a little bit more about exactly what do those words mean. People's meaning everyone in America, awareness meaning political and constitutional understanding, and coalition meaning lawful nationals working together. What we mean by lawful nationals are people that have actually corrected their status. So in essence, the People's Awareness Coalition is the people that have corrected their status, and they're continuously working together to spread the message and get more people unlocked from the system. Then there is a peripheral group that we'll talk about a little bit later on called the Alliance. But we'll move on into the presentation now. So a little bit more about PAC, and more specifically the philosophy and some of our core ideals. One of the core points in PAC is information. It's our mission to be an educational tool to get Americans up to speed on the current condition of the government, so that they can identify exactly what is the problem, and more importantly, what is the remedy. We're going to go through as this presentation progresses, and we will sort of, I'm going to paint a dotted line in terms and terminology, and we're going to really identify exactly where the problem came from, and then we'll kind of wind up with what is the remedy. The next core philosophy of PAC is nonviolence. It's our belief that wars and rebellions are the two most destructive diseases of society, and that actually was a quote from, I think, Alexander Hamilton. paraphrased. And then the next core philosophy would be cooperation. It's extremely important to stay connected with other PAC members and become involved. That sort of ties into part of the first core philosophy, being that we wish to get together and share information. And then the last of the core philosophies, and this, I don't consider this list to be absolutely complete, but so if anybody has a suggestion, we can always make edits. The last of the core philosophies would be the purpose. We have a definite purpose and a goal, and that is to identify and correct the fundamental problem plaguing America for the last century and a half. And in order to do this, in order to restore the Republican governmental system as prescribed by the Constitution. And one of my favorite sort of mantras to live by: freedom is responsibility. So next, we will go on, and we'll a little bit here. I like to sort of warm people up by getting your mind thinking about different rhetorical questions, I guess, and that would be, how many of you would like to better understand why things are the way they are? Why does it seem like they just make up the rules as they go? And why are so many people actually afraid of the government? And how many of you would like to feel more secure? So in order to experience less anxiety about a complex or troubling subject, it's important to better understand that subject. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore this complex issue and identify the fundamental threat we face. So it's our goal as a group to help to bring information to people, but we also don't want to just give out and hand out information and have a bunch of people that really are dependent on us for all this information. We don't mind. Nobody minds helping out, their neighbor, but you want them also to be self-sufficient. So it's our belief that you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach a man to fish and feed him for a lifetime. It's our goal to, bring information, provide information and tools, but it's also up to you to do a lot of the legwork to achieve your lawful remedy. And knowledge is power, of course. So where do we begin? First, like I said, we'll begin by, I'm going to paint a dotted line using terminology, and we're going to explore this terminology. We're going to kind of go down into the nuances of what words mean in law versus what they mean in everyday speech. And then we're going to look at the contrast between rights and privileges, liberty and freedom, and legal and lawful. And there's probably a bunch of other important things that I could put into this, but in the interest of time. So we'll move on now, and we'll take a look at the first of the most important terms that are gone over in the Red Amendment, and that is the term status. The reason that this is the most important term is because this is the object, or this is the subject of our efforts here, is to change status. Okay, so status has many definitions, but the one that really pertains to what we're looking at today is the condition of a person or thing in the eyes of the law. So a status could be the condition of a person or thing in the eyes of the law, like being married or unmarried, like being the servant or the master. Another example would be maybe you are the employee, or you're the boss, or you're the employer. These are terms, employee, and employer are terms that are used of those that are operating inside the system. But the most important status is that of citizenship status, and that is most important for us tonight. Citizenship status is that which we are looking to correct. So a little bit about citizen. Since we're going after the citizenship status, let's look at what is a citizen. A citizen is a person who owes allegiance to a government and is protected by it. Then we have a quote here by Abraham Lincoln from the Gettysburg Address, and that goes, "Government of the people, by the people, and for the people." So this, in my understanding, means that citizens comprise the government, and citizens. So we police each other, I suppose. We do this for each other. We serve each other. For this reason, it's our belief that the citizen bears some responsibility for the actions of the government. After all, they are part of what constitutes the government. By their contributions and acquiescence, they empower the systems that form. Taking this principle into account, we have determined that invoking the inherent right to remove oneself from an objectionable system is the single most effective way of disempowering it. And I always like to put this in here. At this point, we are not an anarchist type group. We do not want to abolish or disassemble the federal government entirely. We want to bring the federal government back into its limited function as it was intended, as I stated in some of the first slides, to restore the lawful republican governmental system. Okay, so that does not mean that we are an anarchist group. So let's look a little bit about power and what we mean by power. So power is defined as legal or official authority, capacity, or right. And secondly, as possession of control, authority, or influence over others. Okay, so we wish to bring power back into the states. So it's really important to understand what exactly do we mean by power. We just want to have autonomy within the states, more sovereignty within the states, the ability to make your own decisions, right? So one example of a power dynamic, would be a parent having power over their child, not the child having power over their parent. I use this example because it ties directly in with a very common maxim of common law, which is that the creation can never be more powerful than the creator. This is an important point to keep in mind as we progress through the presentation. The creation can never be more powerful than the creator. That's very important, and it will come into play later on. So a little bit more about power, and more specifically legitimate power. Where exactly does it come from? Okay, well, a government's legitimate power comes from consent. We'll take this excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. Governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed. So your acquiescence, your allegiance, your consent uncoerced is how a government gets legitimate power. Simply put, legitimate power comes from consent. Now, so moving on, now we're going to look at exactly power as it pertains to systems, and we're going to look at the overarching system of the environment that we live in, and that would be the order of nature. And it is understood in common law that the law regards the order of nature. Okay, the law regards the order of nature. So what does that mean? It means that lawfully speaking, for example, a parent will have the decision-making ability to make decisions for their children. The head of the household will often have that decision-making ability. Furthermore, where one is born is considered, having a birthright to that area. So these would be examples of, the order of nature in play. So what exactly is it defined as? It's defined as the physical universe considered as an orderly system subject to natural laws, not human laws, not supernatural laws. Okay, so natural laws, basically, that just kind of, it is what it means what it sounds like. It's kind of common sense. It's just how everything sort of falls together. Simply put, it's the hierarchy of power, or the correct way that power is supposed to flow. Right now, we're going to take a look at an example of the order of nature as it applies to the United States or the American system. Okay, Before the Constitution was written, in common law, ancient civilizations considered the following to be the true order of nature. And that would be that God is at the top rung of power. God is the almighty, highest sovereign. God then bestows or endows his creation with certain unalienable rights. And those individuals then, through their own free association, form groups, and they form these groups for their own mutual benefit and protection. And then in the American example, we have these groups or states coming together to form the federal government or the United States government as a singular entity. You see, the term United States is used interchangeably with being a plural or being an individual entity. So that would be the last, the least powerful of in this dynamic here, in this power structure here, would be that of the United States federal government. This is an example of individualism, and this is the way that it was before the passage of the 14th Amendment, where the rights and the happiness of the individual are considered more important than the collective. So in this system of individualism, a person that no longer agrees with what their group is doing, or if one of the members, one of the member states or many of the member states decide they disagree with what the United States federal government wants to do, they have the right to leave. Okay, so the Civil War actually would kind of contradict that, I guess, wouldn't it? Because the Civil War, or the so-called Civil War, was waged because there was a secession movement. And in that movement, they were beaten basically back into submission, back into the Union, not allowed to leave. So that was the big turning point, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But first, let's look a little bit here. All these concepts that I'm going over now add up to your rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is also taken from the Declaration of Independence, one of our most important founding documents, and it has a lot of truth in it, obviously. It's nothing but truth. So let's take a look at one of the words here in this passage, and that is unalienable or unalienable. Okay, what does it mean exactly? I think that it's this word's taken for granted a lot of times. People see it and read it, and they don't really fully know what it means. An unalienable attribute or unalienable attribute is one that's impossible to take away or give up permanently. But that implies that it is still there. So what exactly changed? Something must have changed in order for the condition that we are experiencing now to exist. For people to feel this way, that they are having their rights infringed upon, right? So what exactly did change? Well, your rights cannot be taken, they cannot be given up permanently, but you can decide not to value them, and you can decide not to protect them. In essence, what you do is you give them up voluntarily by your own inaction or your own lack of understanding of the current situation. So in essence, you can give them up voluntarily, but they are always there waiting for you to wake up, waiting for you to reassert your rights. And there's another maxim of common law, and it goes that the law sleeps but never dies. So people may through custom and usage sort of deviate from exactly what the law or what the lawful thing is to do. But it's always there. And if only, a group of people decided that, hey, we're going to go by what is the lawful thing and not what's the legal thing anymore. We're going to go by what's the lawful thing now. And we'll get into more about the contrast between lawful and legal in a little bit. But basically, men and women have been tricked into giving up their rightful place in the order of nature, right? So in our graphic here, we have Homer with his thought bubble. You mean men and women have unknowingly given up their rightful place in the order of nature? They must have been tricked. But how? How did it happen? Well, it happened by stealth, and it happened when nobody was paying attention. And it happened in the 14th Amendment, among the other Reconstruction Amendments. And within those Reconstruction Amendments and the other, sort of statutes and laws that were passed in and around that time include the Expatriation Act, is what Frank was talking about before the call, sort of the prologue to this entire presentation. The 14th Amendment, though, is the focus of the book, the Red Amendment, and that is what we're mainly focused on tonight. So how exactly did the 14th Amendment do this? How did the 14th Amendment trick everybody into giving up their rights? Well, basically, at the end of the Civil War, everybody was in chaos. Everybody was just reeling from this terrible thing that had happened. And, I imagine that maybe literacy and education wasn't as hot as it is now. There was probably not a whole lot of people that were really staying on top of what exactly these suits in Washington were doing. And the 14th Amendment's complex language created within the amendment created for the first time a status called citizen of the United States. Prior to this, all individuals were members of their state, and you can see the evidence of this actually in the amendment by the fact that there is a dual citizenship clause in the amendment, and it says in there that one born or naturalized within the United States is a citizen of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So there's dual citizenship created. Believe it or not, we were all dual citizens. Most of us are still. I actually, in fact, am not a dual citizen. I'm a national of the state of Virginia. So the phrase privileges and immunities, this is where the rights went away, right? Privileges and immunities are opposed to rights. They are contrast to rights. They allow the government to change and suspend and ignore these attributes at any time, because after all, the government did give you those privileges and immunities. They are the sovereign over you. They are the one giving you the gift. They are the one, you are the one in their creation. Their creation of citizenship status. United States citizenship status was created by them, by the federal government, right? By it, I should say. So the federal government makes this creation. The United States federal government gives it to everybody at birth, okay? These people are unaware, obviously, for years and years and years about anything having to do with these sorts of matters, with legal matters. It's their presumption that you can decide when you reach the age of majority, which is 18 now. I'm not sure what it was back then, but it's presumed that you can decide not to go along with it. And that is where they give you that little door out. Okay, they allow, it's a voluntary system. Okay, so by staying in their status, you are acquiescing to it. You are agreeing with it. You're complying to it. You're consenting. Okay, and so therefore it legitimizes the entire thing. The moment that you say, look, this isn't right, I realize now that this is not lawful, I want to change back, then it vanishes away. They can't do anything about it. So anyway, let's move on a little bit. We'll look about what is a little bit more about privilege. All right, privileges and immunities. We're going to look at what is the difference between privileges, immunities, and rights. Because after all, the government gives you these privileges and immunities, these attributes. The government gives them to you. They are the sovereign over you. They have given you this privilege, and they can take it. So a privilege is found, this definition of privilege is found in West Encyclopedia of American Law, 2nd edition. A privilege is a particular benefit, advantage, or immunity enjoyed by a person or class of people that is not shared with others. It is a power of exemption against or beyond the law, and it is not a right, but rather exempts one from the performance of a duty, obligation, or liability. So this is a really, really interesting and telling definition here, because it says specifically in the definition of privilege that it is not a right. Okay, that is very important to understand. So the amendment ignores the order of nature, which is known as government de jure, or of right, and replaces it with man's law, known as government de facto, or of fact. Okay, so this is the best example that I can think of to explain the difference between legal and lawful. So let's look at the state of the United States, or the state of each of the states, rather. Let's say it that way, just to make that distinction. Let's look at the status of each of the states at the time and the people within those states before the passes the 14th Amendment. They were living in a lawful governmental system where they had singular citizenship or nationality to the place where they were born, and that was it, right? So what makes it a legal system now? Okay, well, what makes it a legal system is that the fact, or de facto, the fact that this 14th Amendment law was written and that it wasn't shot down and then basically people went along with it and accepted it, that is the fact that created this new legal system. So they can say you're not a national of the state where you were born and you're not domiciled there. Now you're a resident there. There is a difference. Now you're a resident and you're a citizen of the United States. So they've given you these attributes, and by you not getting rid of them, again, that is the consent. Okay. So legal looks more to the letter of the law, and lawful looks more to the spirit of the law. Legal is more appropriate for conformity to positive rules of law, and lawful is for accord with ethical principle. Okay, so just to boil it down and make it short, legal is the ritual of following every little letter and every dot on the I and every cross on the T, following every little ritual and making sure that it's obeyed to the T. And lawful is something more that is moral, going along with what's moral, going along with what's right, going along with what we know our conscience is telling us is right. So there's a good example of legal versus lawful with using the de facto 14th Amendment governmental system, the legal system, as the example. So now let's look at what's the result. What's the result of this new system after time and after ages and generations of people and all this progression of 150 years or more? What is the result now? Well, it is that the federal government now has placed itself, the United States federal government as a singular entity, has placed itself at the highest rung of power because it actually created the status and then gave it to all the individuals in all the states. And the states really are nothing without the people. They're just empty. They're land masses. They don't have a political leg to stand on because there are no people there, right? So if the federal government has given the people all of this, given each of these individuals a status, that is the creation of the United States federal government, then the creation can never be more powerful than the creator. Okay? This is known as collectivism, where the group is always considered more important than the happiness and well-being of the individual. And there's been many examples of collectivist systems throughout time that we can point to. Every system that's ever been socialist, every country that's ever been communist or socialist, every country that claims to run on democracy. Okay, these are collectivist systems. And that's where the group is considered more important than the happiness and the well-being of the individual. Now, here in our example, we do still have the voluntary ability to leave the system when we decide that we disagree with it. But in a totalitarian, authoritarian, system, an absolute dictatorship in a totalitarian system, they would much rather that you died, right, than be able to leave voluntarily. And that has happened throughout time also in history. millions and hundreds of millions of people have been slaughtered and killed by collectivism. They call it democide when a government is committing murder, mass murder. It's the leading cause of death throughout the 20th century. So political power comes from groups of people that share the same status. This is why the states seem to have no power, because the people in all the states are United States citizens. They have no rights. They have no protection of the Constitution of the state wherein they reside. And again, reside is different from domicile, and that's gone over extensively in the book, The Red Amendment, which can be found at redamendment.net. And anybody that hasn't heard this information before is probably thinking to themselves, this is crazy, but it's the truth. It is absolutely the truth. So now that we've identified the problem and how it got that way, and maybe a little bit of a history lesson, we're going to look at exactly how do we fix it. And People's Awareness Coalition is here to help you with this process, and it is a process. Okay, it's not just a one snap, everything goes together and it's all done. No, it is a process and it's lots of mailings and notifications and everything. But the best way to correct the current situation is to bring the power back to the states as intended by the founders by correcting your status to that of a state national. And state national is sort of a term that's been coined by People's Awareness Coalition. You would just actually say national of a state if you want it to be really, really proper. But we're going to go with state national. This means pledging allegiance to a state, thereby bringing political power back to the states and bringing the federal government back into its intended function. Okay, so it's really as simple as that, but the process to do it is not entirely simple. I wouldn't characterize it as simple, but that's just because, you know, there's a little bit of unlearning that has to go along with the process, and that is always really hard for people, especially when you have learned something for a really long time, say 20 or 30 or 50 years of learning the same exact thing or living in the same exact understanding of the system, and then trying to change that understanding can be very hard and shocking for people and cause a lot of anxiety. But that's why we're all here together. We help, we support, we supplement, you know, each other's needs, I guess. With regard to information and law and legal matters and stuff. So anyway, People's Awareness Coalition is here to provide the remedy, but we need your help. So the People's Awareness Coalition does have a process of paperwork that you can buy, and you can submit your paperwork and you can correct your own status, and you will understand exactly what you're doing throughout the process, because you will have all the information there right before you. You'll be able to sit there and read it and understand it before you go through with it. It's not like, hey, give me here's my money, now do this for me, and I'm not going to think about it. That's not how it works. It's been the mission of PAC since 1998 to bring proper constitutional education and political awareness to all Americans, but in time it was realized that most Americans are not quite ready. Thus, PAC Alliance was formed. So this is what I was talking about earlier in the call, because PAC actually is, technically speaking, is made up of the people that have done the correction. But we find that the Alliance members are just as important as the people that have done the correction. Just as helpful, just as important. So the Alliance is formed, is made up of those that know the information or want to get to know the information, have learned a lot with us and want to help with different things, volunteering for projects, you know, working together in a team with on different projects that we have going on. So all the people that basically are involved with PAC will be considered the Alliance. And PAC is looking for good people to move this vision forward. Those people who are looking to free America from its deception and assist those that truly want freedom. And it would be definitely something, you know, to go to sleep at night feeling really good about. So again, PAC is here to help. PAC has released a lot of information that can be found at pacinlaw.us, 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 in the form of white papers. You can start your educational journey there with the assistance and consultation of PAC members or at our Facebook group, Official PAC Alliance. And so the white papers that can be found at pacinlaw.us basically will be information that would tie easily in with the information that is in the Red Amendment, which would be sort of the core. And then each of the white papers would be like an expansion. So even if you're not in a position to change your status, you can assist those that are. You can volunteer your time to assist with different projects and know that you are contributing to a new, better future for all Americans. If you're ready to learn more, you can access the best information on the subject by getting a copy of the Red Amendment, which can be found at redamendment.net again. And also, various members of this group have copies for sale at a slight discount. I have copies for sale from 2012 that are discounted, and because they don't have the glossary and they have some footnotes taken out. But all in all, it's the same book. The 2016 version has a little bit more reference material in it, and it's definitely worth getting. So that basically wraps up our presentation for now, for tonight. But I would definitely like to invite anybody that has a question or a comment to press *2 on their phone if you would like to have a question or a comment. And then also in the online interface, you can just press the 3 little lines that are in the top right corner of the box that has your initials in it, and you can raise your hand that way. If nobody has any questions or comments, then maybe I'll just check in with Frank before we decide to wrap it all up.
Yeah, I don't think I could add anything else. That was a good presentation, Levi. You can find out more at what's that? PAC. I just dropped it.
You still there, Frank? Our icon disappeared. I don't know if anybody can even hear me actually right now. Hello. That's interesting. Our icon disappeared, but I'm still on. Okay, so Shelly can still hear me. Interesting. Okay, well, I guess Frank got disconnected. That's unfortunate. I'll go ahead and just wrap everything up now. I'm glad that everybody got on the call tonight. We've got our numbers are back after the holiday. There was a lot of people. I see your hand is up, Jason. Definitely a lot of people were really busy over the holidays, and so we had really low attendance on the calls. But it's no big deal. Everybody needs to take a little break from time to time. But I'm really glad to see the numbers getting back up there. And right now I'm going to go to Jason and just hear what you got to say. Hello.
Hello, Levi. Hello, Frank. Yeah, I can't think of anything to add. I'm just saying hello. Hope you had a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that kind of stuff, Levi, you and your family, and an excellent presentation tonight, by the way. I enjoyed it. I always do.
Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you. We did have a really good holiday. It was extremely busy. We drove around all over the place, from New Jersey to Southern Virginia to just all over the place. And
wow.
We got to see all the family. And
that's cool.
We definitely checked in for the year on a lot of far away folks. So that was really good.
Cool.
But kind of one of those things that I kind of needed a little bit of a break afterwards, though.
Oh, I'm sure. Hey, I was going to ask you, you've met John from Connecticut before?
I have.
That's cool. Have you had a chance to meet Earl from New Jersey or?
I haven't, but I've spoken to him a lot, and I've talked to him a lot.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I wonder if you might have met Steve as well or not.
No, I haven't. But I've got family that lives in New Jersey, and I think that they might live kind of close to where Earl lives. And so I think next time I go up there, I'd like to maybe take him out for lunch or something like that.
Oh, that sounds great.
I'll ask him.
Cool. Because you guys are all really not far apart of each other. I mean, there's a lot of states over there, but land isn't its land is not as wide open as it is out west.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible for us to get together, and I believe Steve's in New York somewhere, and I'm sure that we'll probably have. I'm sure that eventually we're going to have maybe like an East Coast, conference or something like that, where we actually try and get together and maybe have like a little bit of a meet and greet, family cookout type of thing. I think that would sound. I think that sounds really fun.
Oh yeah, that sounds like that'd be a lot of fun.
I actually live right on a river, and there's lots of open area around me, and so that would be something that I could do.
Awesome.
That'd be really cool. Summertime activities or something maybe. We'll have to plan that off into the future, though. So that everybody can have time to plan if they have to make traveling arrangements or anything like that.
There you go.
Yeah, I got disconnected. I don't know what happened. I was.
Yeah. You were about to say
That's all right.
URL, and then it just kind of blinked out.
It was pacalliance.us/tour.
Okay.
That's the link. It's for the it's the PAC web. It's the PAC web portal, and it's got various pictures on the front of it. And all you do is just run your mouse over that and click on them, and it takes you to different sections of the website. But other than that, that was all I was going to say.
PACalliance.us/tour.
Yeah, PACalliance.us/tour. TOUR. It's the PAC web portal, but that's a good place to start.
Okay.
And you'll find as you navigate through the website, you'll find sections where there'll be a little area to click. It says click here for more info about, and there'll be a lot of white papers that you can pull up that they coincide with what's in the red amendment. That's that's the main tool educational tool that we have to get you up to speed on what's going on. The red amendment.
All right.
Hey, don't mean to interrupt. How did the radio call go tonight with LB Frank? Did you do that?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It went well. We had somebody comment on it on the website. It was one of the hosts actually on Revolution Radio, Michael Allen Olivero. He says, "Hey Bork, remember me, a member of Revolution Radio." He talks kind of funny, and I like your show of truth on with Studio A on Tuesday. I'd like to join back to the PAC. He gives his email in the chat room. Much love, and what you and your co-hosts are in a good place. Hawk Mike, he's the Nighthawk is the owner. Let's us all have a place to tell the truth. And by the way, thanks for all you have done for the past 20 years, sir. So that was pretty good.
Excellent.
I tried. I have a link to get on the chat thing, but I was too busy today, and I didn't get back on there. I usually try to have another PAC member or another state national hover in the chat group to answer questions and whatever, but get comments from folks. But anyway, so far so good. It sounded pretty good.
That's
We're getting a little more in depth into it. Hopefully next time you won't have to work, you can be there too.
I know. That's the bad part. I had to work till 6:30, so I had been pretty much miss it. That sucks. Oh well, what can you do? I still got to go out and make some money somehow.
Right. You got to do what you got to do. But
that's right.
Other than that, everything went pretty well, and the presentation went well. And thanks everybody for showing up.
Yeah, invite your friends next week. Let's get these numbers up.
That's right. Tell your friends.
Cool. Well, on that note, I guess I'm going to go ahead and say good night and God bless to everybody. And Frank, I'm going to be emailing you PowerPoint presentation edits for the intro presentation and for chapter 1 so far of what I have.
Okay.
Get your.
I've got some notes.
info.
I've got some notes too for that. But
okay.
Well, I'll take a look at what you got first, and then we'll go from there.
Great.
And I'll be getting you guys an email out too. I got something for you guys. So.
All right. Have a good night.
All right.
Take care, guys. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Your line has been disconnected by the moderator.